Hi, this is Eli Beck. I am submitting this for my final artifact with the School Diversity Leadership class. And this is my representation of pretty much what I've learned over the quarter, or kind of how I kind of view things over with, I guess with schools. So what I actually ended up deciding to do is actually building a tower that is not particularly functional. And so if you notice right here, it is, I'm kind of representing that traditional model of what school represents. Oftentimes it is boarded up, so a lot of students struggle to actually even get in because it's kind of a one-way trip. Oftentimes I've seen with schools, they're very college-minded, where that's usually supposed to be the end result of where they end up in education is after high school, they go to college. Well, I think sometimes that can be very limiting for a lot of students, which is why right here, we pretty much just have one exit, just one window. So I kind of kept that pretty limited in just what the scope is. And even then, it's still pretty hard to bolster up. So there's two halves. There's a half that is more, has that mindset of the traditional model, and yet oftentimes seems to really struggle for why the reason it's kind of toppling. The root values really behind it were actually drawn directly from some of our readings. So that's the ideas of, the realities of what is actually making education harder for kids and why it's so hard for them to learn. So that's like racism, those biased discipline practices. I mean, especially for those that lead to, students being overly disciplined and where they go into like a track towards prison, and a lot of those things that we were discussing in this quarter. Poverty is a big one, lack of health care. And then the big thing I want to do for this side of it is we actually have, in the background, we have wallpaper, so very traditional, very boring, and yet chaotic. So we actually have, very boring, very faceless button person who actually is, ready to light the cannons to actually like knock it down even further. And then you have everything that, most of the stuff that actually will see is actually things I have heard from colleagues over the years. So these are things that you hear over and over and over again, that can often put into a mindset that's not always of a growth mindset. So that makes things more difficult. Whereas on this half, I went for a lot more, honestly, I went for more pretty and more aesthetically pleasing. And so, especially because it's right now actually based off of, a sunrise. So things are still new beginnings, still things are just starting to click for a lot of, especially our newer educators that I've been seeing going more and more into the field. When you actually look over at the ground part of it, I actually started off all of there's beads all the way across for the foundation for the ground. But as we get farther and further along, I actually start incorporating a lot of the same colors from that I see with whenever I've helped with like Native Club and stuff with our Colville tribe, to actually, try to show that foundation, that background for a lot of students. Now, I will admit a lot of the diversity that I included was directly associated with Native students or with Hispanic students. Mostly because that's what I see a lot with my current practices over with my district, because we're a tricultural school that has a very significant Native population, a very significant Hispanic population. And those who are actually trying to bolster up this particular tower, right here, I actually did try to make it so this is more the representation of Hispanic and Latino diversity. So like based off things like the Mexican flag and, actually picked the 5 most quickly growing Hispanic populations in the United States. So we got the Mexican flag, we've got Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, and Cuba. So those are going to be those, they just have the same colors from those flags. I also included a lot of LGBT representation. So we have the pride flag, we've got the bisexual flag, trans flag, and pansexual flag. And then for the latter, it's actually representing scaffolding, because effective scaffolding would actually, essentially come in seamlessly. So it just blends in with the background. So try to be able to support a lot of our students, especially those who have learning disabilities. And then when it comes to, these are very simple ideas. I try to keep it very simple so it's very not chaotic in comparison to the other side of it. And so these are just a lot of those same concepts that are there to bolster up our students. And our way to essentially revamp it and actually be able to better support our school model, even though the traditional model, in my opinion, should probably be restructured to be able to actually support all students and support all learning. All right, hopefully that made sense.